What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Rear Window, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, starring James Stewart. Rear Window tells the story of Jeffries, who is a photographer who is currently injured with a broken leg. So he spends his time pretty much peeking out his window, observing his neighbors. One evening, he witnesses one of his neighbors, named Lars Thorwood, played by Raymond Burr, mysteriously leave his apartment 3 times with a briefcase. He puts two and two together, realizes that his wife has mysteriously disappeared, and now Jeffries has got to prove that Thorward has done something to his wife, which is kill her. So the entire movie is Jeffries trying to unravel this mystery and prove that Thorward is guilty of murder. So that is the overall story of Rear Window. Let's talk about it. So Rear Window is often considered to be one of Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece of films. And after finally watching this movie, it's kind of hard to disagree with that. I think Rear Window is a fantastic movie. I thought this movie was brilliant. This is the second collaboration between James Stewart and Alfred Hitchcock. And for a second outing, James Stewart in this movie as Jeffries, he is completely scene-stealing. I am slowly starting to become a fan of James Stewart after watching him in this and watching him in Rope, and it makes me want to watch his non-Hitchcock movies. I thought James Stewart as the character of Jeffries was really, really good. I think James Stewart played him with just the right amount of likability, and also with a right amount of relatability as well. You know, Jeffries, he's like this photographer. He has this girlfriend named Lisa, but he's very hesitant to want to take things to the next step. You know, a lot of men can relate to someone like Jeffries, where they're not ready for a big commitment like marriage, even though the woman that they're with, they want to take that to the next level. And I actually think that's one of the good aspects between the Jeffries and Lisa character. Lisa, of course, played by the very beautiful Grace Kelly, in her, who I also thought was really good in this film as well. I just want to go on record. Alfred Hitchcock always never really fully portrayed Grace Kelly as like a damsel in distress. In the 2 movies that I've now seen her in, she's always fighting back or doing something that's productive. Like in Dial M, you know, Grace Kelly, you know, killed the guy who always killed Swan, who was trying to murder her. And in this movie, she's almost like an amateur detective in a way. You know, she believes Jeffries about Thorwald, and the two of them kind of work together as like an amateur detective team to try and prove the man's guilty. I like it. I think Grace Kelly is never utilized as a damsel in distress. She's always doing something. She's always portrayed as being very smart, very cunning, and trying to be a step ahead of everything. And this movie, to me, is no different. And I also enjoyed her chemistry with James Stewart. I thought Kelly and Stewart have a very good on-screen dynamic. I like the relationship. I like how they relate to one another. Yeah, I like how Jeffries is this photographer having like this everyman job that, you know, people can relate to having this everyday job that doesn't really pay well, but is able to give you a somewhat modest living, though you're not living like a king. But on the flip side, you have Lisa, who is a socialite, and you can tell just by the way she dresses and just how the way she acts that she comes from something more upscale. So the reason why I find this interesting is because you have the modest man of Jeffries and the socialite of Lisa. You would think these 2 personalities wouldn't mesh together because they come from 2 different worlds, but quite the contrary, they do mess with one another. And they do mesh with one another. And Lisa can act more like she's down on Jeffries' level as opposed to being above him. And that's one of the main things I took away from this movie, and why I think the relationship between Jeffrey and Lisa works, and why I think that James Stewart and Grace Kelly have very good on-screen chemistry. So I got no complaints with that whatsoever. This movie is also backed by a very strong supporting cast. You have Stella, who is kind of like Jeffries' nurse's aide. They have a lot of good conversations. They actually have a good conversation about why Jeffries is so hesitant to marry. And I like the character of Stella. She's kind of like a voice of reason to Jeffries in a little way, kind of like a confidant in a way. And I like the scenes that they share with one another. And I also like how Stella also plays a hand in the investigation along with Lisa and Jeffries as to what happened to Mrs. Thorwald. Speaking of which, we get to Raymond Burr, who plays Lars Thorwald. And I'm just going to say right off the bat, I thought Raymond Burr came across in this movie as as a good level of creepiness and suspicion. And what makes this character work is that Raymond Burr has little to no dialogue in this movie, and it works to the character, and it works to the Thorwald's character immensely because it just adds a level of just intrigue, mystery, and suspicion of him. Because because he barely says anything throughout this entire movie. He has one little comment about someone criticizing how he's watering a garden, and then you get to like the last, I don't know, 5 minutes of this movie when he and Jeffries finally have their face off in a very well directed scene that could rival any horror movie made in this era. So yeah, I thought Raymond Burr as the character of Thorwald was very good. Very good performance by Raymond Burr. The little the better, and it worked to Raymond Burr's advantage because Raymond Burr is a physical specimen to begin with. Like, he's a big dude, so he has like an imposing presence to him in a way, and it's all in how you utilize someone like a Raymond Burr. And in this movie, I thought Hitchcock utilized Raymond Burr absolutely perfectly. This role was tailor made for Raymond Burr. Is ultimately what I'm trying to get at. So yeah, I got zero issues with the casting. I got zero issues with the story. I think this movie story is intriguing. I love it a lot. I also like how this is one of those first earliest movies that dove into the whole thing of voyeurism and peeping Tom, and having that peeping Tom kind of thing to it, which is what Jeffries is. He's kind of a peeping Tom, and I like how all the neighbors that he, observes have their own little stories all to themselves. They have this slightly elderly couple with a dog who likes to sleep on the fireplace at night. You have this newlywed couple. You have this other woman named Miss Lonely Heart who's constantly dancing almost in the nude. And Jeffries comes up with these little stories with them, which I like. It's like little mini vignettes, like he's observing his neighbors. I like all that stuff. I like how Hitchcock was able to play with that voyeuristic nature that he would later expand upon in movies like Psycho and so on and so forth. So I like all that stuff. I thought that was very, very creative for the time period that this movie was made in. I got no complaints with that whatsoever. In terms of the direction of this movie, it's Alfred Hitchcock. The man is a spectacular director. He knows how to use shadows. He knows how to use contrast. He knows how to deliberately pace his scenes. He knows how to give it the right amount of levity without being too over the top with it. And he knows just how to get that right amount of suspense. With me, the best directed scene the most thrilling scene out of this entire movie is when Jeffrey starts to be suspicious of Thorwald, observing him in a thunderstorm, leaving his apartment 3 times with a briefcase and wondering, what's this man up to? What's he doing? It's deliberately paced, no dialogue, no music. It's just direction, it's just expressions, and it's just the suspicious nature that Jeffrey starts to have for the character of Thorwald. And then you get to the climax of the movie, which is also beautifully directed and well done. Though I think the ending can be a little bit rushed, especially when Jeffries accidentally falls out the window and breaks his other leg. And then the cops come in, and then, oh yeah, he's ready to confess. I think the ending could be slightly rushed, just a little bit, but that's just me personally. But yeah, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed Rear Window. I think this was a fantastic movie, and I'm just going to give it a 10 out of 10. This movie to me is perfect. This is now one of my favorite Hitchcock movies. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for Rear Window. Let me know your comments let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.